What's going on, everybody? My name is Drew. Welcome to Generation Crypto. And today we're talking about 5 signs of a rug pull. Before we hop into my 5 points here, let's go over what exactly is a rug pull for those who don't know. A rug pull, according to CoinMarketCap, says, quote, a rug pull is a malicious maneuver in the cryptocurrency industry where crypto developers abandon a project and run away with the investors' funds. Rug pulls usually happen in the decentralized finance or the DeFi ecosystem, especially on decentralized exchanges or DEXs, where malicious individuals create a token and list it on a DEX, then pair it with a leading cryptocurrency like Ethereum, or more recently that's become more popular is on the Binance Smart Chain. Once a significant amount of unsuspecting investors swap their Ethereum or BNB for that listed token, the creator then withdraws everything from the liquidity pool, driving the coin's price to zero, and the coin's creators may even create a temporary hype around Telegram, Twitter, and other social media platforms, initially inject a substantial amount of liquidity into their pool to cultivate investor confidence. So essentially what happens, as this is basically saying, is a development team creates a coin, builds up a lot of hype around it. Once people invest their money into it, they walk away with those funds and leave you as the bag holder. Now, these aren't going to be in any particular order, and them in and of themselves doesn't guarantee a rug pull, but it definitely increases the chances that that specific project is more likely to be a rug pull. And if it has multiple of these factors, I would be even more concerned. The first one we're going to talk about is that the liquidity is not locked. And what we mean by that is a lot of these tokens that are being developed are what's called DeFi cryptocurrencies, and that's where a lot of these rug pulls are occurring. So in order for DeFi cryptocurrencies to function properly, they need liquidity pools. And so those liquidity pools need to be locked. That way they're not pulled out by the development team. So if the development team is not locking their liquidity pool for a specific amount of time and have plans for that, that's a major red flag you want to watch out for. Now, the second thing we're going to talk about is use case. Now, a lot of people will get mad when I bring this up, but it's important to know that this token or this coin has use case, especially if you're planning on investing in it for the long term. Now, there's a token for almost anything these days, and a lot of them are meme or hype tokens where their entire purpose is just to generate hype. I mean, we've had them named after former presidents, we've had them named after famous people, or for different activities. But if that specific token does not provide some form of use case or doesn't provide some form of solving a problem in the cryptocurrency arena or in the real world, unless it's going to actually do something, then there's really no point to it. And eventually it's going to crash and burn, or it's more likely to be rug pulled. The third thing we're going to talk about is audits. So if a token has gone through the audit process, it's less likely to be rug pulled. Now, that doesn't guarantee it won't be rug pulled. So it could still definitely happen after an audit, but having a token go through the audit process can then guarantee that first thing we talked about, that the liquidity is indeed locked properly, and bring up any issues involved with that specific token. You also have to make sure that the audit team that's actually auditing that token is a reputable audit team. So one of the more popular ones that a lot of the newer tokens are using is Certicay. Now, the audit team doesn't necessarily have to be Certicay, but it could be another reputable audit team. There are plenty out there. Just make sure it's not just some small fringe one that they've invented to try to claim that there was an audit when there really wasn't an audit process. But a token going through the audit process significantly reduces the chances that it's going to rug pull, as you will obviously be able to see the errors in the code or the errors with the token in and of itself. Now, the fourth thing we're going to talk about is if the price immediately skyrockets after its launch or a pre-sell. The reason is because a lot of whales are predatory on these newer tokens. They see that it's initially launched and it may have some hype behind it. Maybe the development team's trying to push it. They'll invest money into it, creating it to 10 or even 100x so that people want to hop on board and not lose out on the gains on that token. And then once a few people have kind of hopped onto that train and there's enough liquidity involved, then the development team or these whales will come in and suck out all of their liquidity, leaving everyone else as bag holders. So if you see a coin that immediately skyrockets in its price, that's not always going to be a good thing. Now, there are legitimately great projects that are out there that launch with a lot of initial hype and do perform really well in the future. But if it's a token you've never heard of before, and again, it doesn't have these other points that we've talked about and the price just starts immediately skyrocketing, it's probably going to be a rug pull. So just avoid that or be careful of those and invest at your own risk. And the last thing, which is kind of ironic considering how cryptocurrency started, is if the development team is anonymous. Now, typically speaking, I would prefer teams to be anonymous. I would prefer the focus to not be on the development team, but rather the project and what it has to offer and what it brings to the table. But when it comes to a lot of these tokens, they're not relying on their own blockchains and the technology of proof of work. And because of the nature of tokens, having all of them immediately generated and not having to be mined or staked in order to be developed, there's a lot higher chance of this new rug pull phenomenon that's been going on with tokens. So having the team doxed or having their name publicly available makes the chance of a rug pull less likely, especially if it's their real world identity and not just a pseudonym or a nickname they go by online. Now, one thing I wanted to emphasize here is some of you may have pointed out that you've seen rug pulls occur that have met some of these markers. And like I said, none of these guarantee that there's not going to be a rug pull. These are just red flags that if you see, you might want to be skeptical of that particular project. There are projects that have met all 5 of these points and still failed. And sometimes it is legitimately an intentional rug pull, and sometimes it's because the development teams fall apart. There's just issues in the background that go on. So now that we've gone through all 5 signs of a rug pull, I did want to give one last bonus sign of a rug pull. Now, there are plenty of others I'm sure others can think of, but the last one I wanted to give is that if the smart contract allows a development team to mint new tokens at their own free will and volition. Now, this can be a major issue because what can happen is a development team will wait till enough backing has happened behind their token and enough liquidity has been developed. Then they can go out and mint a ton of new tokens and then sell off immediately all those new tokens they just minted for a massive profit, tank the price of that token, and walk away with a massive profit while they leave all the original investors having invested in a much higher price, left to either deal with the extremely low price or possibly no liquidity, meaning that they'll never get that money back. So that's just another way a development team can rug pull a project. So that's just one other thing I wanted to make people aware of and to watch out for when doing research on a token and whether or not they want to go forward with investing into that project or not. But most importantly, do your own research on these tokens. Ask yourself these 5 questions about these specific tokens and then go from there. If you're wanting to invest in cryptocurrency, wanting to have a little bit less risk, then you might want to stop investing into tokens and start investing into actual cryptocurrency projects that have already been well established and developed. Of course, those well-established tokens and coins are going to still see a lot of volatility in their values, but they're far less likely to be rug pulls and they're far less likely to drop completely out of value. So if you're wanting to invest in these high-risk tokens and coins, do so at your own will. I would suggest at least using this checklist before you invest. I hope what I was able to share today was able to help you out in understanding more about what rug pulls are and things you can watch out for to avoid them. And I'll catch you guys in my next video.